Are you ready to bring the JavaScript in? And I know that's what you're here for, so let's begin. And we need to first select our elements into usable objects in JavaScript. So using const, because it's going to be a node list that's not going to be changing. Let's create an object called tooltips, and we're going to use document query selector all, because we're selecting all the elements, with a class of tooltips or tooltip. Save that and refresh, and of course we don't see anything different quite yet, but we see within tooltips we've got a node list of 2 items. So we can loop through those elements. So creating a for loop, or we could do, so let's do a simple for loop, setting our variable of I to be 0 and looping through while I is less than tooltips, and node lists have lengths just like arrays, looping through all of the elements that have a class of tooltip. And then let's increment I. So this will output all of those elements and make them usable. So selecting our tooltips object and selecting the index value of I, we can select the element, and we can also add an event listener at this point. So let's add an event listener. The event listener that we want to add is mouse over. And whenever mouse over happens, then we want to run the function, so the block of code that's going to be contained within here. So for now, what we'll do is we'll console log out the event object into the console. So now every time we hover over them, and whenever we've got mouse over, then we've got this firing off, the event object is firing off. And this is actually where we want to add in the tooltip. And we can also get the element that triggered that event as well there. So we can see that's the element. And that means that we can get the data that's contained within the attribute. And we've got this object using get attribute, because the data attribute, the data tool content attribute, is contained here within the attributes of the element. And we can get the value of that current attribute. So let's set up a variable for that, and we'll just call it holder. So now whenever we hover over, we get the contents of the tooltip. So now it's a matter of calculating out where we want the tooltip to show up and updating the content within output of the contents of tooltip. So let's do one more thing before we conclude this lesson, and we're going to select the element with the class of output so that we can utilize it within our upcoming lesson. So go ahead and do that. Add in the event listener for your tooltip, so you might have more than just the 2 that I have. And this is fully dynamic, so the more that you add in, and they're all going to be adding in and having that mouse over function being applied to them. If you've added in the event listener, you're going to be ready for the next lesson where we're going to be showing you the tooltip.